To every single right-winger who is talking about these issues, I notice this pattern where they try to talk to women like they talk to men.
Now he's saying, get your kids off birth control. And praise God, they shouldn't be on birth control if they're your kids.
No Christian parent should ever allow their daughter on birth control, ever. Period. That is, if your daughter's on birth control or granddaughter, get them off. We basically told a great generation of young women, don't get married, don't have kids, go get a corporate job, and it's created mass political hysteria. And then in their early 30s, they get really upset because they say, the boys don't want to date me anymore because they're not at their prime. And people get mad when I say that. Well, it's just true. If you're in your early 30s, I'm sorry. It's like you're not as attractive in the dating pool as you were in the early 20s. But again, you have your corporate job and cats, so I thought
Yeah, once you turn 30, you're not in your prime anymore, and you're not as attractive. That messaging to try to push people to get, specifically women, to get married earlier isn't going to hit as well.
Middle MAGA.
Charlie Kirk speaking at a TPUSA event. This was the faith event at Fervent Church in Las Vegas. He made remarks about women's prime age. Uh-oh. He targeted those in their early 30s. I wonder how this comment went over when he got home from work. His wife is Erica France, and she's 34. She was previously Miss Arizona in 2012 when she was still in her prime, according to Charlie Kirk. I wonder if she said, honey, I want to talk to you when he walked in the door.
Okay. I don't like you. I think you spread hate. I think you spread bigotry. I think you piss a lot of people off because you're just an awful person.
never said anything that's hateful. Have a nice day. That is the American left in one picture, everybody. Lots of rage and no wisdom.
But I'm going to tell you why Charlie Kirk was right. He suggested that women in this age group, the same age group as his wife, are, quote, not at their prime. And I quote, not as attractive in the dating pool.
And then in their early 30s, they get really upset because they say, the boys don't want to date me anymore because they're not at their prime. And people get mad when I say that. Well, it's just true. If you're in your early 30s, I'm sorry. It's like you're not as attractive in the dating pool as you were in the early 20s.
Don't get in trouble, Charlie. We out here. Charlie's putting himself out here, man. This statement sparked all kinds of discussion. Remember, Don Lemon made headlines in February of 2023 for very similar comments.
She says people, politicians or something are not in their prime. Nikki Haley isn't in her prime. Sorry. When a woman is considered to be in her prime in her 20s and 30s and maybe 40s.
What are you talking? Wait.
That's not according to me.
Prime for what?
It depends. I mean, it's just like prime. If you look it up, if you Google when is a woman in her prime, it'll say 20s, 30s, and 40s. I don't necessarily.
40s. Oh, I got it.
I'm not saying I agree with that. So I think she has to be careful about saying that politicians aren't in their prime.
We need to qualify. Are you talking about prime for like childbearing, or are you talking about prime for being president?
He made about women's prime age. This time coming from an openly gay man. So I don't know why he cares. Moving along, he stated that Nikki Haley, who was 51 at the time and a presidential candidate, was not in her prime.
And you look at what's happening in this election. Yes. Are you going to vote for me?
Is it working?
This is as basic as saying biological men can't be women. Those remarks sparked significant backlash for Don Lemon. He had to make public apologies.
Don Lemon has apologized to CNN staff for the comments he made about former South Carolina governor and 2024 presidential candidate Nikki Haley. The CNN anchor called into a staff meeting Friday and offered an apology to co-workers during a daily editorial call at the news network.
He had to make public apologies to his colleagues and the audience for what? He acknowledged that his comments were sexist and inappropriate. He expressed regret for his words. Following the incident, CNN announced that Don Lemon would return to the air, but would undergo formal training.
They're not at their prime and
maybe 40s.
What are you talking? Wait.
That's not according to me.
Prime for what?
Why would Charlie Kirk say something like this? Well, he was talking to women and he was being frank and saying, well, make sure that when you're thinking about how your career goes, spend your prime years doing what you want because you don't get them back. If you're going in the corporate world, fine, go in the corporate world. But understand that if you're in that 20 to 30 age, you're using your prime years for a corporation, especially if you're a Christian or a dissident, that a corporation that probably hates you. And we all know that this is stemming from childbearing years. And that's a beautiful thing. That's not a diss. That's saying that biologically women's fertility does decline with age. My mom had me when she was older. My wife and I are both older parents. This isn't to diss older parents. He's just stating a fact. Gynecologists note that fertility decreases gradually, but significantly beginning about age 32 and then decreases more rapidly after age 37. Unless you're Halle Berry, who I know she had her youngest son, Maceo, when she was 47. I believe she gave birth. I'd have to look that up, but that's wild.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
How do you feel?
I feel fantastic. This has been the biggest surprise of my life, to tell you the truth.
Really?
Thought I was kind of past the point where this could be a reality for me. So it's been a big surprise and the most wonderful.
And a boy.
It was labeled a geriatric pregnancy. Unless you're Halle Berry, these things are pretty standard. What Charlie Kirk is saying is making a general statement that has value. Of course, there's some women who are outliers where their prime is earlier than the mid-20s or later than the mid-20s. That because of these exceptions, that doesn't make Charlie Kirk's take. He's talking about the notion that, well, we can't buy a house. So what happens? We get all of these people on pills, women, not these people, not birthing people.
Black birthing people.
Women. We get women, young women on these pills. They don't get pregnant.
No Christian parent should ever allow their daughter on birth control, ever.
Now, you want to plan it out. I don't want you to have unplanned, but even if it is unplanned, it's still beautiful. We want you to have children and you want you to have a father and want you to be married. But what he's saying is we are accepting in society right now that most 25-year-olds can't buy a house, can't get a crib, and they don't want to have kids just because of that. They're trying to save up money. And we're thinking this is normal because we're going to push it down the road. If we looked at it like this is our prime years, maybe we would demand more of our politicians. Why are you funding wars in all these other countries and we can't buy a home for me and my family in our prime years unless you're got money handed down or you've got one of the 1% in this country? We got people on TikTok celebrating that they're dinks and all this kind of stuff.
We're dinks. We go to Trader Joe's and workout classes on the weekends.
We're dinks. We get into snobby hobbies like skiing and golfing.
We're dinks. We can go to Florida on a whim.
We're dinks. We're already planning our European vacation next year.
Dinks. We get a full 8 hours of sleep and sometimes more.
Double income, no kids type of stuff. If that's your life, that's fine. But a society can't run like that. Savvy Savs felt some kind of way about it.
All right, I vowed to never break my silence on this issue because it's so vitriolic, but the time has come. And there is a reason why men are drawn more to that Andrew Tate-esque style of commentary and women are averse to it. Because guess what? Men and women are different. Now, I completely agree with all of these sentiments of women should be mothers as soon as possible. They should stay at home with the family as opposed to being in corporate life. I agree with the sentiment that birth control is bad for us. It's bad for our brains and it changes our physical and mental structure, essentially. I do agree with the sentiment that we need strong men in society and that feminism is a lie that a lot of women have fallen for. I agree with all of that, but to every single right-winger who is talking about these issues, I notice this pattern where they try to talk to women like they talk to men. And that's why we're losing a lot of women in the right wing. Because guess what? Women aren't men, and you can't talk to women the same way you talk to men. When it comes to men, telling women, once you turn 30, you're not in your prime anymore, and you're not as attractive. That messaging to try to push people to get, specifically women, to get married earlier isn't gonna hit as well. So, again, I haven't even wanted to touch this issue because I guarantee you down in the comments below, you're going to see people saying, oh, Sav, you're such a rabid feminist now. No, I do agree with the majority, actually pretty much all of the sentiments that right-wing men have for women. But our delivery of this messaging is completely off, and there is a huge reason why we're losing women.
Tell you this, Savs, you're great, love your work, you're an inspiration. But the Access Hollywood tape came out and Trump won in 2016.
Are you familiar, I'm sure you are, with something that's often referred to as the Access Hollywood tape?
Yes, I am. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the...
That doesn't mean he would win now, but it's not like there isn't any precedent for this. Trump is a unique figure. And right now, what women can do to help is let men be men, stop denying biological facts, or get the hell up out of the way.
Now, these are both sentiments that I actually agree with. Now, I completely agree with all of these. I agree with the sentiment that birth.
Another thing, fellas, don't argue. You cannot win. You cannot beat a woman in an argument. It's impossible. You will not win. Because men, we are handicapped when it comes to arguing. Because we have a need to make sense. Women ain't gonna let a little thing like sense fuck up their argument. Cause she's not in it for sense. She's in it for distance and irritation. How long can I talk before this motherfucker snaps?
Middle MAGA.